Boy oh boy is Sigmund Freud. Maybe some of you have heard of him. There are only a couple of possibilities of where you've heard of him from. Either from a freshman psychology course, from the Sigmund Freud Museum in Vienna, or from some psychopath who incorporate him in small talk. Guess where I first learned about him? Yeah, it's freshman psychology. I don't travel, nor I have friends. Beside of an incredibly hard to pronounce last name, Sigmund Freud has various genius theories. Quotes on the genius. It includes every male wanting to sleep with their mom, every female wanting to sleep with their dad, and babies having too little or too much oral stimulation will cause them grow up addicted to eating ass. So, and the average millennial. We can see that these three theories are all related to something that starts with an S. Yes, you're right. They're all related to psychology. Wait, that's not how you spell it. Okay, that's how you spell it. Oh yeah, they're also related to Anyway, Sigmund Freud had a big impact on psychology. Some of his theories about the subconscious are still discussed today. He is also the founder of psychoanalysis, which is the basis to modern psychiatry. You can say that he is some sort of fancy analytical therapist, analyst for short. And Sigmund Freud did a lot of cocaine in his time, which is the 80s. Well, not the 80s you were thinking about, not the 1980s, but the 1880s. So he is kind of a hipster. He also tried to convince people that cocaine is good for their health, and that didn't go too well. Another quite controversial theory suggested by Freud is the Oedipal Complex, or Oedipal Complex.
Oedipal Complex.
Yeah, that. This theory is inspired by a story like all great theories. Like, for example, Newton's law of gravitation is based on the story of Newton getting hit by an apple. The butterfly effect is based on the movie The Butterfly Effect. And Darwin's theory of evolution is based on, well, it's actually quite obvious if you think about it. It's based on Pokemon. Yeah, so it's not that weird and absolutely scientific that Freud's theory is based on a play called Oedipus Rex. The play is written by Sophocles, who also has an incredibly hard to pronounce name. And of course, he has an IMDb page for some reason. The plot of the play is basically there is a king called Oedipus, and one day his kingdom got ravaged by a plague. And he wants to know why. And in the end, he found out that it's due to the fact that he killed his own father and married his mother. So he kind of had a mental breakdown and stabbed his own eyes out. What an idiot. Somehow he chose to marry a woman much older than himself without thinking that there is a chance that she is his mother. And also, he could have used his own experience to create a scientific theory with no evidence whatsoever. Do you know how many people are waiting for a cornea transplant each year? Me neither, but I think it's a lot. After Freud saw this play, like any normal person, he had an epiphany. Stop right here. Looks like Freud was not inspired by the play, but he claims that he is inspired by the myth that the play is based on. Okay, my bad. That is much more credible. He kind of said that the reason why we enjoy this play is because we are all cursed to want to kill our father and do it with our mother because some reason that sounds cool. The exact wording he uses, our dreams convince us that this is so. What does that even mean? Sigmund Freud is actually a big fan of dream. Well, this dream. He believes that our dreams will tell us something about our unconscious mind. So Sigmund Freud went home, probably snorted some cocaine, and then he formulated the Oedipal Complex. So I want you to picture this. There is a 3-year-old boy, and the boy is incredibly horny, and the boy wants to, how do I put this nicely? He wants to have sex with his mom, but his dad is already having sex with his mom. So the boy hates his dad. and the boy kills his dad, and the boy marries his mom. The last two parts are actually just the fantasy of the boy, and by the boy, Sigmund Freud meant every single male on the planet. He also said that overcoming this complex is an important part of growing up, but it seems like no one cares about this part. If you are like any normal person, you can see the biggest flaw of this theory is, what about females? According to Sigmund Freud, all women are experiencing anxiety due to the realization that they do not have a penis. This is entirely his words, not mine. Please don't cancel me. So women are more likely to have anxiety disorders compared to men. So he is at least 50% right. I mean, he is always 50% right, because either he's right or he's wrong. Who am I kidding? This theory is really dumb. As if this theory does not sound ridiculous enough, he named it Penis Envy, which sounds like the title of a porno. So let's just get back to Oedipal Complex. After remembering that females exist, Freud changed the theory to make it applicable to both genders. But wait, there's still a problem to this theory. What about same-gender parents? Which parents would the child want to kill? Do they kill the uglier one, or do they just kill themselves to avoid the choice? You may think that I'm joking, but this is actually one of the biggest concerns the scientific community has on this theory, at least according to Wikipedia. I mean the same gender parent part, not the part about killing themselves. There's also this. It seems like even Wikipedia don't like this Oedipal complex. I don't know why no one seems to care about the incest part of the whole thing. But let's not think about ethics now and throw ethics into the trash, because it is overrated anyway. And let's try to examine the evidence to see whether Sigmund Freud is actually just a Sigmund Freud or not. So what did Freud use to prove this groundbreaking theory of the Oedipal complex? One of his evidence is a case study of little Hans, who is a 5-year-old boy. So little Hans is scared of horses, which is really inconvenient since horse-drawn carriage is among one of the most popular transportation methods at that time. So it's equivalent to someone having a fear of cars in the present day. But I mean, you will have that fear too after hearing that another Fast and Furious movie is coming out. So his dad talked to Sigmund Freud about this, and Freud be like, it's definitely because horses have big penises, not because of the possibility of horses biting the kid. Definitely the horse penis. So Sigmund Freud proceeds to tell the 5-year-old in an extremely not creepy way to fantasize himself having a big penis and marrying his mother. This is his words, not mine. Dude, it's like this guy wants to make anyone who quote him sound weird. How come when Freud tells this to a kid it is therapy, and when I tell this to a kid, I'm a creep and no longer allowed near schools and playgrounds? Fast forward to when little Hans turned 19, his phobia of horses disappeared, and Freud said, yeah guys, no need to thank me, just doing my job as an anarchist. Seriously, this is the evidence provided by Freud. It's even lamer than me stealing jokes from Arrested Development. Well, it looks like that creating a theory in the 19th century is like giving a TEDx talk. Everyone can do it. Little Hans's dad is literally Freud's pal and supports Freud's theories, so it's possible that he accidentally influenced his kid to fit into Freud's framework. Can we just mention how weird it is that someone will casually talk to their friend about their child's dick? Also, side note, little Hans's mom threatens to cut off little Hans's dick if he won't stop touching it. All these things make little Hans wanting his sister to drown the third most messed up thing in the family. There is also some study later trying to link horses and little Hans's dad, saying that little Hans is indeed scared of his dad's penis. Wow, that sounds even dumber when I say out loud. Now I'm going to do the same thing and link putting pineapple on pizza to putting pea on pizza. First, they are both yellow, most of the time. Second, they both contain water. Third, they both start with a P and ends with an E. Well, that is an exaggeration, but you get the point. You are bound to find similarity in two unrelated things if you look hard enough. That is how you can find amogus everywhere. You can say that everything that has a length is a metaphor for a penis, like how Freud said that the giraffes in Little Hans's dream is a symbol for penis. Trees are penises. The TARDIS from Doctor Who is a penis. Your neighbor's gardening hose, definitely a penis. Okay, let's talk about another study which is about eye color preferences. To simplify, the eye color of the opposite gender parents of a person can predict the eye color of the partner of that same person. This is related to the concept of sexual imprinting, which is not related to printers but somehow related to foot fetish. No, wait. Shoe fetish? What? It states that this mate selection criteria are learned from a really young age, usually from the parents. Honestly, I don't really think that this directly proves the existence of the Oedipal complex, especially the OG version of the Oedipal complex created by Freud. Because according to Freud, this complex would have been resolved by normal people when they grew up. So studying adults don't really tell us anything about whether the complex exists. To be fair, this study did not even mention Freud or the Oedipal complex, but Wikipedia says that it is proof that the complex exists, and everyone knows that everything on Wikipedia must be true. There are more logical explanations than the Oedipal complex to the result of the study. For example, genetic factors. People may be able to inherit mating choices from their same gender parents. Or maybe people just think that mates that look like their parents are as nice as their parents, assuming that they have a good relationship with their parents. Or maybe free will is just a lie and our so-called mating choices are all controlled by the Matrix. Okay, give me a break. If Freud can get away with making stuff up on the spot, I can too. Anyway, there is a way more convincing study that is actively trying to prove the existence of the Oedipal complex. That study is harder to summarize. It's based on telling participants to imagine themselves in 5 different scenarios. The Oedipal loser scenario, where a 6-year-old kid walks into his parents having sex, or as a particular Reddit copypasta calls it, playing League of Legends. The spousal betrayal scenario, where a guy walks into his wife cheating on him. Well, the betrayal part depends on whether you have a cuck fetish, but whatever. The Oedipal winner scenario, where a 6-year-old kid walks into his parents' bedroom and cuddles with his mother and pushes his father away. This is an awfully designed scenario. I would have made it so the 6-year-old walks into the bedroom, aggressively stabs his father with a kitchen knife, and forces his mother into marriage. There is the maid poaching scenario, or what I call the porn scenario, where a guy is seduced by a married coworker. Excuse me, I said it wrong. The exact wording is an extremely attractive married coworker. Try to say this 4 times as fast. There's also the control scenario of roommates cooking breakfast, and it ends with the main character reading newspaper, which is incredibly unrelatable because who the hell reads newspaper anymore? Not to mention he starts at page 3 for some reason. In the first test, participants' reaction to the Oedipal loser, spousal betrayal, and control scenarios are measured through their attitudes to porn. Somehow, male participants who read the Oedipal loser scenario felt more like a victim than male participants who read the spousal betrayal scenario. That means you are more disappointed that your parents had sex, which is the reason that you were born, than the fact that your wife, the love of your life, is cheating on you. It even rhymes. Hold up. The reason I was born? On second thought, that makes perfect sense with who wants to be born, am I right? On a serious note, there is the explanation of the Oedipal loser scenario being more disgusting, so the participants have a more negative attitude to porn. The study did a second experiment, having participants fill in letters to form words that can have a neutral meaning or a negative sexual meaning, like whore. Yeah, you two probably don't want me to say those words, but somehow it's okay to write it in an academic journal. I see how it is. Participants who read the Oedipal loser scenario are more prone to fill in letters to form negative sexual words. The study says that it's definitely not because people are primed by the scenario to think about sex, so they form words related to sex. They say that the reason why that is not the case is that only the relationship between the Oedipal loser group and the control group is significant. Wait, what? Okay, let's not get ahead of ourselves. The spousal betrayal group and the control group not having a significant relationship also means that filling in negative sexual words may not be related to sexually derogatory thoughts. I think that this experiment is not enough to disprove the possibility that the result of the first experiments is due to disgust. Also, going back to the biggest problem I have with this study, are they really implying that people love their opposite gender parents romantically more than their spouse? Especially the Oedipal complex should have been resolved for most people, according to Freud. If the residue of the Oedipal complex is still this powerful, is it even resolved? Hey, will you save your girlfriend or your mom from drowning first? I will save my mom and let my girlfriend drown so I can marry my mom. Of course, there's a chance that I'm dead wrong and we really should marry the person who gave birth to us and ruin humanity with rare genetic diseases. At least our blood will be purer than the bloodline of middle-aged Europe monarchs. This study is not only trying to say that the Oedipal complex exists, it's even trying to say that we want to marry our parents more than our current romantic partner. More other differently designed studies have to get this same result just for this surprising and honestly unrealistic revelation to be even believable. Okay, I have not even covered the third and final experiment from the study. It compares how the Oedipal winner, the mate poaching, and the control scenario affects attitude on cheating. Again, somehow, only the Oedipal winner scenario significantly impacts attitude towards cheating compared to the control scenario. First, the Oedipal winner scenario is not sexual at all, but I guess that the ethics committee won't be too keen to allow an experiment that tells the participants that a 6-year-old is having aggressive sex with their parents. Second, again with the same problem. This study is saying that you would rather marry your mother than an attractive coworker. An extremely attractive coworker. The mate poaching scenario is not even significantly different from the control. The thing is, instead of just proving a theory that is supported by very little evidence, the study also suggests something that makes even less sense. It's like trying to prove that the Loch Ness Monster exists, but the result of your finding also say that the Loch Ness Monster can shoot lasers out of its eyes. What I'm trying to say is that there is a high chance that other factors are at play here. Especially for the fact that for experiment 2 and 3 only the Oedipal condition showed significant effects, whereas the scenario that should also show significant effect does not. Also, I feel like there are other odd details when looking at the study. Like if the attitude towards porn has such a big gender difference, is it really a good measure to use in experiment 1? But I don't think I will talk about those details here. Both this study and the eye color study are in the description if you guys want to check it out for yourselves. There is actually a reason why in science you cannot just make up a theory without evidence, then try to prove that it is true. Here's the thing, if you already believe that something is true, you will be more likely to accept evidence that proves the thing is true. That is called the confirmation bias. And that is one reason why some people still believe that vaccines cause autism and the earth is flat when everyone knows that the earth looks like this. The so-called proof of ghosts. To people who believe in ghosts, they are undeniable proof to the existence of ghosts. But to people who don't believe in ghosts, aka normal people, those clips obviously have other much more logical explanations, like telekinesis. But hey, guy with a plant on his head, you might say, won't you also display confirmation bias since you don't believe in the Oedipal complex? Yeah, let's talk about the Westermarck Effect. The Westermarck Effect is also called reverse sexual imprinting. Sounds familiar? It's the opposite of sexual imprinting. If the image of a stuck paper going back into the printer appears in your mind, no, it's not that. It states that if you live close to someone in the first few years of your life, you will not be sexually attracted to them later. But then how is Freud attracted to his mother then? You might say, or you might be blissfully unaware of this fact. Yes, Freud indeed admitted that he got aroused from watching his mother undress, which is somehow not the weirdest thing that he has claimed. But anyway, Steven Pinker, a cognitive psychologist and an author, explains this with the fact that Freud's mother is not the primary caretaker for Freud when he was young, so the reverse sexual imprinting did not happen. In the end, the validity of the Westermarck effect is still under debate, so this cannot be concrete evidence to oppose the Oedipal complex. So let's go back to the confirmation bias part, which I've talked about a minute ago. One way to reduce the confirmation bias is through the consideration of the opposite. So I just have to assume for a moment that the Oedipal complex is real. And let's also assume that the Loch Ness Monster is real, because why not? If the Oedipal Complex really exists, there should be multiple ways to prove its existence, especially with the various methods that can be used to detect the implicit part of the mind. In a divorce, children should pick to live with their opposite gender parents, but not with their same gender parents. Here's how a conversation between a dad and his 5-year-old son should go. Listen, son, your mother and I are getting a divorce. Hooray! Wait, what? I'm going to live with mom. But why? Screw you, dad. I've been waiting for this moment for years. Ha 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 ha. First, 5-year-olds nowadays are more likely to say fuck instead of screw. Also, I cannot find any statistic about which parents the child would choose in a divorce, especially for the age range when the Oedipal complex is theorized to be the most prevalent. If children really want to marry one of the parents and kill the other, isn't choosing between the parents an easy choice? It's like having to choose either going outside to touch grass, to feel the warm sunlight and to admire the beauty of nature, or just staying in my room alone. Yes, I would gladly stay inside forever. Thank you very much. Anyway, because that is such an easy choice, studies on child preference of which parent to live with after a divorce should yield significant results and be used as evidence of the Oedipal complex. But this is just not the case. Of course, there are different possible reasons why this kind of study does not exist. Maybe people think that asking a child to pick sides may just generate more conflict in the divorce, or maybe collecting children's opinion is just pointless because your opinions don't matter if you are a 5-year-old who barely understands the plot of a Pixar movie. Or maybe the result got eaten by the Loch Ness Monster or something, I don't know. Do you see the problem? Oedipal complex is said to be normally found in children, which is the hardest group to study. Children are non-compliant, loud, and just disgusting in general. Wait, remind me again, why do we bring more of these demons into the world? Oh yeah, because if we don't do that, society will collapse and the human race will end. Now I think about it, that isn't that bad of an alternative. If you want to test whether children love their opposite gender parents in a sexual way, you will have to convince a lot of parents to let you run sexually explicit tests on their children. Even then, the ethics committee or the law may not let you. Literally 1984, am I right? At this point, it's just easier to invent mind reading to read the subconscious thoughts of children. But this isn't an excuse why there are no studies with a decent sample size that prove the Oedipal complex. Because there should be other non-sexually explicit ways to at least find some evidence. I did find some studies on parents' preference, but those studies focused on the impact of gender expectations on kids. But wait, what is this? The kids prefer the same gender parents or had no preference in the age where the Oedipal complex should be the most prevalent. What a surprise! This study seems to also indicate the same thing, although it won't let me read it. What is this, 1984? Although these studies are about gender roles, the parents' preference component shows that kids actually prefer the same gender parents, or it actually does not matter. But remember, preferring one parent does not mean the child wants to have sex with that parent. I prefer tea over coffee, but that doesn't mean I want to have sex with tea. Yeah, don't picture it. Even if you ignore those gender role studies and find evidence of children loving their opposite gender parents more, you still need to prove that the love is sexual. Also, side note, why does it seem like everyone doesn't care about proving the hatred of children towards the same gender parents anymore? I guess because in theory the hatred stems from loving the opposite gender parents. But still, it's like making a hamburger without the bottom bread, and also the whole hamburger does not exist because you're trying to make a hamburger without buying the ingredients. Okay, hear me out. I have a crazy theory. What if the Oedipal complex does not exist? So that is why there is no large-scale data collection that yields significant and reliable results in favor of the Oedipal complex. Of course, this is still a big logical leap. And yeah, I could be influenced by confirmation bias, but I think I already tried to minimize it by considering what will happen if the Oedipal complex indeed exists. You might say, hey, that is not even a good argument against the Oedipal complex, and you might be right. But here's the thing, if the Oedipal complex is universal and important for child growth, why has no one found any strong evidence to support it? In this case, doesn't the lack of evidence suggest that the complex does not exist? Yes, there are case studies, but are you gonna study a few kids and say that the Oedipal complex applies to everyone? If you cannot even find enough evidence to support this theory, how can you say that you know this theory enough to apply it clinically to help your patients, instead of just causing them to find another therapist? Hey, I don't know how the heart works, but I'm pretty sure I can handle a heart surgery. I made fun of Freud a lot in this video, but in his defense, he does not want everyone to have sex with their parents. He believed that the incest taboo is important for society to function. Hear that, Alabama? Actually, I think that incest is illegal in Alabama, but I don't want to search what place allows it because this video already ruined my search history enough. Without Freud, there won't be modern therapy. Some people now still benefit from some of the ideas in psychoanalysis. However, it seems like psychoanalysis is getting more and more stranded due to the lack of scientific methods used in the field. Well, that tracks, considering the Oedipal complex was suggested without sufficient evidence. But who needs science if we have the power of friendship or something, am I right? Also, some of Freud's ideas were also holding back the progress of feminism. Some of his practices were quite unethical. But that was the time when psychologists could torment babies in the name of science. Most notably, Freud's belief in the Oedipal complex caused him to treat the traumatic repressed memories of sexual abuse victims as mere fantasies. Wait, no, no. But regardless, I don't think we should say that Freud is a bad guy. Like many other figures in history, it's impossible to quantify whether Freud had more positive or more negative impacts. Maybe it's pointless to argue whether we should love or hate Freud since, well, he's dead, unless you want to kiss his remains or something. But anyway, this won't stop me from making fun of him. A good theory should be able to explain a phenomenon effectively and can be tested using scientific methods. I don't think the Oedipal complex achieved that, especially when it raises a lot of questions that are not completely answered. For example, how can you know that the Oedipal complex is universal or even common? Maybe it's just a rare phenomenon. Case studies won't tell us that because there will always be those who fulfill the scenario of the Oedipal complex. There are all kinds of people out there. Using those people as proof is like saying that cocaine is good for your health just because you haven't died from cocaine overdose yet. Oh wait, here are some other questions that are unanswered. If you think about it, the Oedipal complex falls apart faster than my mental health when I was making this video. Remember, data is objective, but how we interpret it is subjective. We have to consider other explanations other than the Oedipal complex and see which makes more sense in order to minimize the confirmation bias. Don't try to fit everything into the framework of the Oedipal complex, because of course there will be something that seems to fit if you want them to. I cannot say with 100% confidence that the Oedipal complex doesn't exist, but there is certainly not enough evidence to prove that it does. Maybe I'm clouded by my own confirmation bias, maybe I'm right, maybe by the time humans go extinct because of some dumb TikTok trend, still no one will know whether the Oedipal complex really exists or not. Or maybe I'm just overthinking everything. So what is the takeaway here? You can go to watch some random movie, let's say the emoji movie, and make up some kind of emoji theory. Or if a crazy person says enough crazy things, one of them will bound to gain attention. The crazy person of course is referring to me. I'm making more of these videos, baby. This is just my first video. It took me a long time to make this. Way longer than I expected. I changed the script multiple times even as I was recording. But I'm quite happy with the end product. While I was making this, I found out Wikipedia has a whole section about incest, and I regret not using incognito when I was researching for this video, because now Google thinks that I'm a weirdo for searching kid kissing their parents' stock image and other stuff. Also, I didn't expect the video to be close to 30 minutes long. I was expecting like 20 minutes tops. So thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed this video, it will mean a lot to me if you like and subscribe. Next video will probably be a little bit different because besides the breaking down series, I also want to get other series going. Hopefully they won't take as long to make. That's it for now. Goodbye.